The deportation of Ukrainians from Poland, as well as from other European Union countries, is a topic that currently concerns a large number of Ukrainians, especially against the background of statements made by representatives of the authorities of various EU countries, as well as by the Ukrainian authorities. I would like to analyze this topic in as much detail as possible today, and not just talk about the fact that Ukrainians are being deported from Poland or other countries, but to show clear mechanisms and also give specific instructions on what to do so that you are not deported from Poland or other European Union countries to Ukraine. So that it is not a forced deportation, after which you would be escorted back to Ukraine. So who is most interested in this topic? So subscribe to my page, be sure to like, subscribe. Thank you to each of you. First of all, today there is a lot of skepticism among Ukrainians living abroad. I see a lot of comments, including under my own videos, saying that deportations from the European Union are impossible, that there is a war going on in Ukraine, and that people cannot be returned to a country at war, and so on. By the way, I have already made several videos about this on my channel, including recently about deportations, and there was also a lot of skepticism there. But as of today, for example, in 2025 alone, 1,150 Ukrainians have been deported, forcibly deported from Poland to Ukraine, that is, to their country of origin. These are people who were escorted by the Polish border guard from Poland to Ukraine. I also won't talk about the situation with deported Ukrainians who were brought from the US to Poland by plane and then sent under escort to Ukraine. These are well-known facts that we have already discussed more than once. Also, regarding 2026 specifically in Poland, during 2 nights of raids conducted by the police together with border guards, 91 people were deported. They received a decision on forced return to their country of origin. That is, not a document that says you can leave, but that you must leave the Schengen area within 2 weeks. No, but under escort and handed over to the Ukrainian border guards. Then, the Ukrainian border guards hand such people over to the police, and if there are any issues with military registration, the police hand them over to the Territorial Recruitment Center. And what's most interesting is that this happens without a criminal court. This often happens without any appeals at all, without warnings, and it has already become some kind of standard practice, and those who are interested in this issue know that it's true. So, there's no need to prove facts that are already clearly proven, which even come from official statistics. So, let's start with how this mechanism actually works and why Ukrainians can be deported to Ukraine without trial or investigation. First, the decision to expel someone from Poland is made either by the voivode or the border guard service. And this can happen without a criminal court, at the discretion of the border guard service itself. And after receiving the deportation decision, the person has 14 days to appeal. If an appeal is filed, the execution of such a decision is suspended. If an appeal is not filed, the decision comes into force and you are taken away, actually. And here there is one small detail that always surprises me. It's that people who receive the information, yes, and receive the deportation document, they don't turn to lawyers, they don't even try to defend themselves, and very often, right at the Polish border guard office, they refuse any kind of legal protection. And they are immediately taken to Ukraine. They refused, signed all the documents, and they were taken under escort. So a very important point, number 1, is for 2026, in any situation, any citizen of Ukraine, even if you are not planning to break any laws there, even if you don't have any legal problems there, you need to have the contact details of a lawyer you can always call. You don't have to pay him in advance, just have his contact in your phone. So that, at the very least, if you are already at the border guard facility, you can call this lawyer, so that he can defend you, file an appeal, and help you understand the situation. And not just bow your head and be escorted back to Ukraine under guard as quickly as possible. This is a very important point, and never ever ignore it. So, in 2025 there were a total of 2,100 forced deportations in Poland, and that's twice as many as in 2024. In 2026, I'm sure the number of deportations will be even higher. Why? Because Poland has started systematic work to combat foreign offenders. And they have already officially announced many times that there will be zero tolerance for violators in Poland. Those who are not citizens of Poland, and if people are imprisoned for serious crimes, then for less serious crimes, people will simply be taken back to Ukraine. For things that once didn't result in deportation or only led to imprisonment in Poland. So, and now here are 5 real reasons why you can be deported. And they are very, very different. The first and main reason, which is not always relevant for Ukrainians today, is actually unlawful stay in European Union countries. In most cases, Ukrainians have extended residence permits, extended visas, and extended visa-free stays. Ukrainians who have UKR status generally have no problems at all. But if we talk about other European Union countries, it's very clear that, for example, if you are traveling from Poland and your residence permit is expired, then if the German border guards stop you, they start the deportation procedure and you will be deported to Poland. That's it. At the same time, they might open a case against you. Usually these cases don't turn into anything serious, but it's additional hassle. That's it. And actually, there's such a thing as illegal stay. And at the end of the video, I'll give clear instructions on how to check your legal status in any country, no matter where you live or where you are, so this unlikely but still possible issue does not become a reason for your deportation. The second reason is illegal work. Working without a formal contract is one of the fastest ways to get a deportation order during any police, tax, labor inspection, or border guard raid. Starting from June 2025, employers are required to register foreign workers through the digital ZUS platform. Inspections are automated, and the new powers allow inspectors to conduct workplace checks without prior notice. And if your employer hasn't registered you, or if you agreed to work illegally, then be sure that as soon as any Polish authority or the corresponding authority in another country will check and determine that you are working illegally, and you will be deported to Ukraine at that very moment. In Poland, this is probably one of the most common grounds for deportation, especially for Ukrainians. Third, these are criminal cases and violations. This, of course, specifically concerns serious crimes, such as driving under the influence of alcohol, theft, possession of drugs, bodily injuries, and they impose a ban on entering the Schengen area for 5 to 10 years. There were also less serious offenses. For example, in September 2025, maybe someone remembers a 21-year-old citizen of Ukraine, out of ignorance, launched a drone over the Belvedere Palace in Warsaw. He was immediately detained, fined 4,000 zlotys, and deported. Plus a ban on entering the Schengen area for 5 years. The Polish Internal Security Agency checked his phones, and there was no evidence that he was spying on anyone or doing any kind of work there. He simply launched a drone where he wasn't supposed to, out of ignorance. He just didn't know that it was forbidden to launch it there. And he was still deported. Just for launching a drone, violating the rules, that's it, deportation. Next, regarding fines, there's a lot of information that Ukrainians are being deported for fines. Usually, when it's just one fine, deportation is not possible. But repeated minor offenses, the accumulation of these fines can already become grounds for deportation. And it will be considered a systematic disregard for Polish law. So, if you think that you only have minor fines and you haven't done anything serious, so you can't be deported, that's not true. If you accumulate a lot of minor fines over a certain period of time, you may be considered a violator, yes. And as a foreigner who disregards Polish law, even in minor matters. Plus, it's also very, very important to mention the issue of unpaid fines. There are cases, and quite a few of them, when a person, for example, was issued a fine, but the person didn't even know about the fine or forgot to pay it. And this very often happens when, for example, a person hasn't updated their registration and the fine is sent to their old address. They don't even know about this fine and don't pay it. Then this case about the unpaid fine goes to court, and after that it's already a court proceeding for such unpaid fines. During any inspection, you may also be seen as someone who does not respect Polish law, who does not comply with penalties, and you may also be deported. So be sure to update your address, right? Register so that you don't have such problems, and so that if any questions come up about you, you will definitely know about them in time, and it's better to pay a fine than to be deported to Ukraine later. At the same time, everything you have in Poland, in Germany, in the Czech Republic, and so on, will stay there while you will be taken to Ukraine under escort. So it's very important to understand this. Next, the fourth point is the threat to security and public order. In my opinion, this is the favorite point of Polish border guards, because the definition of this very threat is broad and is applied administratively without a court decision. That is, in fact, you can fit absolutely anything into this threat to security or public order, right? If you want to. Because if you think about it, crossing the road at a red light is also a violation of public order. Or if you drive a car and exceed the speed limit by 10 kilometers or run a red light, or if you don't yield to a pedestrian, that's also a threat to public order. And then it all depends on the opinion. Then your future depends on the judgment and decision of the Polish border guards about what to do with you, because they can actually issue a deportation order against you even based on some minor things. At the moment, they don't do that, but again, nothing prevents them from starting to do it at any time, because the relevant legislation already exists. So there is this legal uncertainty, and they can actually do whatever they want, if they want to. And fifth, yes, this concerns double protection or payments in two countries of the European Union. Now, this is hardly possible anymore, but isolated cases still happen. That's it. Because the European Union directive prohibits having temporary protection or receiving social assistance simultaneously in two countries. For example, you have temporary protection in Poland and in the Czech Republic. In Poland, you receive payments under the 800+ program for your child. In the Czech Republic, you also get some local payments. If this information comes to light, if you are caught, your temporary protection will be immediately cancelled, and you will also most likely be deported to Ukraine. In general, if you look at it this way, you can see that to avoid 90% of deportation problems, it's enough to simply respect all the laws of the European Union country, where you are staying, where you are living. But still, we see that no one can be completely protected, for example, from crossing at a red light, or from not yielding to a pedestrian somewhere, or from speeding, or illegal parking. Basically anything you can get fined for. And that's exactly why, because you can't be 100% sure here that you'll never commit any minor violation in your life. It's called minor because it happens often. And that's why you don't go to prison for it. You just get some kind of fine, even a small one. That's exactly why I urge absolutely everyone to have lawyers' contacts in their phone. So that if you get detained somewhere, or if they start serving you with a deportation order, you can immediately ask for help instead of just sitting there not knowing what to do. So make sure to protect yourself in this situation. Next, 6 specific actions that will also eliminate 99% of all problems that may relate to deportation to Ukraine in 2026. First of all, it's official employment. Forget about illegal work. Forget about getting €0.50 more somewhere, but getting it because it's illegal work, it's not worth it. Such a risk. I'm not even talking about fines anymore. I'm talking directly about the fact that you might not get paid I'm talking directly about deportation, forced deportation to Ukraine. The second thing is fines and orders. Pay them immediately. An unpaid fine that turns into a court decision is a risk factor during any check. For example, when submitting documents for a residence card. Third, one status in one European Union country. If you move, for example, from Poland to the Czech Republic or from Poland to Spain, you must cancel your Polish temporary protection and only then obtain it in another country. Now, again, it's unlikely to get double status, but it's never zero, so make sure to keep an eye on this as well. Fourth, which is very important for all Ukrainians with the UKR status, is identity verification by August 31, 2026. If you registered in 2022 without an international passport, you need to go to the city hall or municipal office where you live with a valid passport and verify your identity. Anyone who does not verify their identity will lose temporary protection, and after that, it can be interpreted in different ways because the laws change all the time. I don't know, a couple of months, and this may already be considered unlawful stay in Poland at the very least. Next, the fifth point is the appeal period, 14 days. Remember, even if you are issued a deportation order, never sign anything without a lawyer. Never agree to anything without a lawyer. Demand a lawyer and, as I already mentioned, have your lawyer's contact information in your phone. Contact lawyers immediately, file appeals, because this puts the deportation order on hold while your case is being reviewed. You will have more time to somehow prepare for this and try to avoid it. And sixth, be sure to collect what they call documents proving your ties here. So be sure to keep your employment contracts, receipts from Zeus, your children's school report cards, rental agreements, and so on. And all of this helps during an appeal when you file an appeal against a deportation decision. These are the kinds of documents that prove your integration, your rootedness, and so on. They really help to change this decision to something softer, like just getting a fine, for example, or at the very least, so that you are not forcibly deported from Poland, but instead, for example, you are simply given 14 days to leave for any country outside the European Union, outside the Schengen zone. So, that's the story, friends. What do you think about this? Be sure to write in the comments. I'd be very interested to hear what you think and read your comments. As always, I wish you all a great day. See you.